Welcome to Old School Movies podcast, where I, Nora, your host, will share my reviews on some old but gold box office hits in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Rest assured that I will try not to spoil much of their golden details so that you can sit back and enjoy them later. For today's episode, let's dive into my top movie that exceptionally portrays different aspects of everyday one adventure. May I ask you this question before I start today's sharing session? It may be a bit sudden, but we all know that our time on Earth, or the time we are still alive, is actually not limitless. In other words, no matter what age we're at, we'll leave when it's time. Have you ever, out of nowhere, imagined what would happen if you can feel, or somebody like a doctor tells you that your time is almost up? If you were in such a situation, what would you do? I think, at least for many of us, we'll think of how to make the most of our remaining time and do whatever we can. If you're the type of plan-oriented person like me, there may be some bucket list coming in the way. I think so far, or ever since I entered school, I've loved to take the lead of my life, trying to stay ahead of the time. For such a reason, plan making is like a skill that naturally comes to my life. I have all kinds of lists, from daily to-dos to the longer bucket list up to the age of 40. I don't know how many of you out there have experienced such a weird satisfaction. But honestly, it's extremely satisfying whenever I manage to cross one duty or go in the list. And sometimes, the seemingly harmless special trait does trouble me. Without moderation or good control, it can accidentally turn out to be a mental self-torture if, for some reasons, I cannot cross the list. For a while, that tingly feeling pushed me to give my all so that I could return to the set track and, yes, to cross the line. With my fierce hunger for achievement, I even used to feel like the whole world ended when I failed to accomplish any goals. In fact, I was quite conscious of such marvelous phenomena that I possessed. I did want to release such a heavy feeling, but I was too afraid to open my heart with others. Like a drowning creature, I tried to lean on anything that I could to at least alleviate the stress, though just a bit, and I found the bucket list 2007. Just by looking at its title, I don't know whether I overinterpreted it or not, but I strangely felt resonated with this movie without having watched it. Now I'm still very grateful for such a chance, as the movie does not only showcase the human's mentality when conducting the checklist in different stages of life, but also conveys simple yet essential life messages that are beyond the list. It was like a nice reflection of my life back then, and at the same time, a nice source of advice that helped me to improve my extreme side. The Bucket List 2007, produced and directed by Rob Reiner, follows two men, Edward Cole, a wealthy corporate executive, and Carter Chambers, a working-class mechanic, who meet as roommates in a hospital after both are diagnosed with terminal cancer. Despite their contrasting backgrounds, they form a deep bond and decide to escape the hospital to complete a bucket list, a series of life goals and adventures they wish to accomplish before they die. With Edward's wealth funding their travels, they set off a whirlwind journey across the world, experiencing moments of joy, fear, and reflection. As they tick off items on the list, the men confront past regrets, grapple with the meaning of life, and find solace in their friendship. Their journey ultimately helps them to rediscover hope, personal fulfillment, and acceptance, leaving a legacy of courage and compassion for their loved ones. The first impression I got from the first few minutes of the movie was unclear, due to its special hook. Viewers can briefly get both main characters' current state of living through a relatively short introduction of their job. Carter is set in a garage, while Edward is arrogantly standing inside a court raising his entrepreneurial voice. I was a bit puzzled actually, because obviously it's quite fair if there is no match between these two men from the beginning. I was curious how they can progress to friendship, which seems impossible due to the disparity in personal social network, living environment, and mindset. But such contrasting personalities are the key that led to their meaningful bond, though it lasts for just a few remaining months of their lives. Before I go deeper into sharing with you about my observation of the characters' traits, let me brief you a bit about the MBTI test, which I will partially base on trying to make sense of this unique kinship. So MBTI, or its full name Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, is known as a great set of questionnaires designed to categorize individuals into 16 unique personality types. Its parameters include 4 main manners. Each has 2 ends on its scale. First manner is interaction with others, with extrovert or E for short, and introvert or I for short at the 2 extremities. Second manner is how an individual processes information, which is assessed via sensing, or S, and intuition, or N. Third is how a person evaluates the acquired data and makes decisions through thinking, known as T, or feeling, known as F. Last is how a person prefers to lead his or her outer life through judging, known as J, or perceiving, known as P. All these initials of 4 parameters combine, and there is your personality type. If you're an introvert who makes sense of the data, relying on personal logic, but are still able to make a conclusion in an impersonal way with an outstanding plan-making life, you are a typical INTJ, or introvert, intuition, thinking, judging kind of person. And hello everyone, I'm an INTJ, or the architect, a non-scientific name for this personality. If you're curious about this personality assessment tool, I already set a link to my blog page below, which hopefully will help you have a swift basic grasp of it. Please let me know later what your results are once you finish the test. Now, back to our 2 main characters. Based on my observation of the first few minutes, I believe that Edward Cole is an ESTJ, or known as the executive, which is illustrated through his outspoken, assertively confident voice and an impressive logic-driven mind. It really matches his career as a wealthy businessman. He values structure, control, and is direct in his approach. He tends to focus on the practical and tangible aspects of his life, initially resisting emotional connections, yet his journey reveals a softer, more introspective side. ESTJs are typically ambitious, pragmatic, and less comfortable with vulnerability, fitting Edward's initial look and his gradual openness by the end of the film. Meanwhile, Carter Chambers is at the other end. He is a typical INFP, who is introspective, compassionate, and deeply philosophical. INFPs are often idealistic and empathic, driven by a sense of personal values and desire for connection, which is seen in Carter's patient approach toward Edwards and his own family. Carter's journey and decisions reflect his longing for purpose and fulfillment. With such a sharp contrast in both apparent observation and the science aspect of personality, by right, there should have been more quarrels within this duo. But the dramatic tension in Edward Cole and Carter Chambers' contrasting personalities ultimately fosters a deep friendship. The differences lead them to challenge each other's worldviews. Edward pushes Carter out of his comfort zone, enabling him to explore adventurous experiences that fulfill his bucket list in a way that he never imagined. Meanwhile, Carter's philosophical insights and warmth help Edward break down his emotional walls, confront unresolved regrets, and open up to personal growth. This interplay of personalities allows each to fill the void in the other's life, forging a bond based on mutual respect, growth, and understanding that transcends their initial differences. I truly admire the filmmaking crew for their mastermind in pre-planning this odd friendship, which seems very impossible at first, but turns out to be very reasonable later. At this point, if we relate what's happening on the screen with our daily lives, hey, doesn't it seem that most of our relationships also embark in such ways? Can you see that at least some of them include a few contrasting elements between us and the others, but we actually ended up as a perfect group? What is truly significant in Rob and his team's effort is the art of bringing our subtle life perspective onto the wide screen without making the audience feel like, oh, this film is so predictable. Yet, viewers can still feel it life resonating or seeing themselves in each character's life. Furthermore, planning is quite a common trait among us as our world is getting unpredictable to some extent, and we always want to stay prepared for any circumstances. So the majority of us, especially for those who are plan-driven like me, planning is essential no matter what kind it is. This film also expresses the same notions, even emphasizes the meaning and the importance behind the bucket list, but in a bigger picture. Through a reckless journey of two old men with terminal illness, it suggests that we should be deliberate in choosing how we spend our time and set meaningful goals rather than drifting through life by just crossing the list. Edward and Carter initially pull out the adventure, checking out activities like skydiving and racing cars in a rush to live life fully. Yet, as their journey unfolds, deeper experiences arise. Carter reconnects with his wife, rekindling lost intimacy, while Edward seeks forgiveness from his estranged daughter. These moments shift the focus from thrill-seeking to the importance of love, reconciliation, and personal legacy. It seems that the true fulfillment comes not from merely ticking off experiences, but from aligning our goals with values that enrich relationships and personal growth. And if you are unable to accomplish any goals or embark on any dream journeys, it's never too late. The story reminds us that age, circumstances, or time left shouldn't be barriers to fulfilling our dreams. Whether big or small, taking steps toward your goals can be fulfilling, no matter when you start. By crossing items off the bucket list, the characters take risks and step into unknown territories. This message encourages us to move past our comfort zones and face our fears, as that's often where most rewarding experiences lie. Both Edward and Carter had dreams they couldn't pursue earlier in life due to various constraints. Carter, a brilliant man with a love for learning, had always dreamed of becoming a history professor. However, financial pressures forced him to work as a mechanic to support his family, putting his personal aspirations aside. Similarly, Edward, a wealthy businessman, spent his life focused on building his corporate empire, which left little room for genuine relationships or self-reflection. With time running out due to their terminal illnesses, they now find themselves free to pursue experiences previously out of reach. Edward's wealth removes financial barriers, enabling them to travel, skydive, and explore the world. More significantly, they are now willing to prioritize their fulfillment over practicalities, something they couldn't allow themselves before. This journey of shared experiences becomes possible only after they confront their mortality, finally taking steps they had once deemed impossible. Importantly, through this adventure, both men learn that material success alone doesn't bring happiness. It's the experiences, moment of joy, and sense of fulfillment that leave a lasting impact. In the quest to complete the list, they learn to appreciate simple joys. This message underlines that while the grand goals are important, everyday life holds moments worth savoring. Edward, who has spent his life amassing a fortune, initially believes that thrill-seeking and luxury experiences will bring him accomplishment. However, as he and Carter check off big adventures, skydiving, traveling to the Taj Mahal, and dining in high-end restaurants, Edward begins to realize that these moments are fleeting and don't fill the void he feels inside. Edward's most meaningful moment occurs when he reconnects with his estranged daughter and meets his granddaughter for the first time, finding a happiness he's had never experienced in his corporate success. These instances illustrate that while goals are memorable, it's often everyday memories and relationships that bring the greatest long-lasting joy. For Carter, the journey reveals that the simple joys of life, especially those tied to family and love, hold more value than he realized. Despite fulfilling exciting dreams like seeing the pyramids and climbing Mount Everest, he finds that his true happiness lies closer to home. One of the most impactful moments in the film is when Carter realizes that his happiest memories aren't from these trips, but from intimate moments surrounded by his humble family's members. The Bucket List 2007 is a film that centers on a list, a concept that resonates deeply with those of us who are always planning, dreaming, and striving toward future goals. But the story gently reminds us that no matter how ambitious or simple, our goals reflect what we value most or feel is missing. In our pursuit of achievement, it's easy to overlook the beautiful present, to take for granted the quiet joys and relationships that shape our lives. Rather than a high-stakes, action-packed drama, this film is a gentler exploration, guiding us on a journey to find peace within our hearts, especially after life's many ups and downs. In its essence, a truth is made apparent. Achieving one's goals is challenging, but persevering a sense of self, one that remains pure and true despite hardships, is perhaps even harder. Through Edward's and Carter's journey, the film highlights how easy it is to overlook life's simplest, yet most significant aspects which lie just beneath the surface. These quiet, everyday moments often carry more weight than we realize, as they become truly invaluable when lost. Like a reminder, the movie resurfaces the role of balance between self-effort to reach any dreams and a cherishing enjoyment in our simple daily moments, which makes life feel more whole. Before I end my sharing today, may I ask you this once again as a food for thought. If one day you have to leave and you happen to know it beforehand, what kind of list would you like to pursue? So that's the end of my sharing today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it interesting. For your convenient reference to the historic events I mentioned, please find the links to my blog page in the description, where I have compiled all the related information. If you have any questions or you want to discuss more on what I shared today, please leave your comments below. I would like to talk to each of you more as well. You can search for more episodes of this Old School Movies podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and my own blog page. Thank you for listening to today's episode all the way to the end. And I hope to see you again in my next episode of Old School Movies, which will be released soon. Once again, this is Nora, your host. Thank you so much and goodbye.